Hi everyone, it's Erin from the Provincial Farmhouse. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be using IOD's new seed catalogue transfer to create some French country garden themed thrift flips. Our first project is this lovely wooden box. I think it's handmade and it actually had a really cool sticker on the inside. I think it was used for school fees at one point. I'm going to be using it today. My first step is to use Fusion's Vintage Laurel Milk Paint. I'm going to get a cap full of that and I'm going to put that in a container. And once I have that down, I'm going to take the same amount of water and add that to my milk paint. You always want to do equal parts, and then I'm going to stir it really well. I'm going to be applying my milk paint with a chip brush. It doesn't really matter what brush you use with this paint because it's next to impossible to actually get brush strokes with this lovely paint because of its thinner consistency. So I'm applying a generous coat. I'm only going to be doing one coat here, and then I'm going to speed up that drying process. If you have watched my channel for a while now, you'll know I'm obsessed with this milk paint. I love getting it to that lovely chippy crackle finish. This really gives it an authentically aged finish, and to do that you lay down your paint and then you speed up that drying process. Some surfaces are going to give you more crackle than others. This was a slightly shiny surface, so I am getting some chipping and cracking, which is great, but if you're using it on a porous surface you are less likely to get chipping, and when that happens you can use a candle, some wax to create some sort of a resist. So you can see I'm working my way around the box, applying that paint, and then once I have that particular section done, I hit it with that heat gun. Remember, you can find a full product list in the description of this video and all your crafting needs on our website, theprovincialfarmhouse.com.au. So my vision for this piece today is an old seed box, something that a gardener would have kept their seeds, their gardening gloves, their tools in. They would have grabbed it out whenever they were about to do some planting. So I really want to give it a lovely weathered chippy look. I've seen some gorgeous vintage seed boxes on Pinterest that inspired me, and that seed catalogue from IOD is going to be perfect for creating that look. Once my paint has completely dried, I'm going to come in with some 220 grit sandpaper and I'm going to sand away all of that chippy goodness so that we can see that wonderfully chipped paint. This is just such a beautifully, authentically aged look. I'm going to work my way around my little container here and I'm going to remove any paint that's flaking or chipping off. On the back, I got a lot of chippiness. Almost a little bit too much, but that's okay because the look we're going for is a very vintage weathered piece here. Next, I'm going to share with you all a lesson that I learnt the hard way. I thought that to use a transfer on the top of this milk paint that it was better to be safe than sorry to grab my flat clear coat and use it over the top. I had heard that you shouldn't add a water-based clear coat to milk paint, but I thought if I was light and I didn't go too heavy that it would be okay. But guys, learn from me. You can see here it starts to smear that milk paint. It reactivates it, and I'm just lucky that I was able to come in with a heat gun and quickly dry this so it didn't completely reactivate everything. But learn from my mistakes. Do not use a water-based top coat. Don't even worry about it. Just pop that transfer on there and seal with wax. Next, I'm going to be using IOD's new seed catalogue transfer. This is absolutely gorgeous. It's 8 pages of lovely floral, fruit and vegetable designs, lovely vintage labels with each of these illustrations. It is so gorgeous, very similar to Ephemeral Melange, and I think it's going to be just as popular. I've grabbed this lovely design here that's the first one in the pack, and I'm going to put it on the top. A lot of these vintage seed boxes had beautiful old marketing for seeds on it, and I felt like this really fit in with what I was trying to achieve. So I go to lay it down, and here I've decided actually there's a couple of words that I'm going to trim so that I can get them to fit a little bit better. So you can see I'm just going really slowly here, just working out what I need to do. I haven't pressed it down yet, so I was able to pull it back up and do the trimming that I needed. Now that I've got it pressed down, I am using a transfer tool, and you can see here that again, I actually decided let's trim that bottom part off so that it fits a little bit better. So I'm the same as you guys. A project evolves. I make mistakes and I have to go in and fix them, and hopefully you can learn from my mistakes and what I'm learning along the way. So now that I have that all down, I'm going to lift up a corner and I'm going to start rubbing and burnishing that design down. These are so beautiful to work with. I was worried originally that it wasn't going to stick too well to the milk paint, but I shouldn't have been worried. It's going on perfectly, and just go slow so that if you miss a spot, you can go back and fix it. So once I've got that main design down, I'm burnishing it with the carrier sheet, and then I'm going to add the extra text that we cut off down on the front part of my seed box. Now I am using some 220 grit sandpaper to scuff up my design. At first I wasn't sure if I was going to need to add that extra little bit of lettering that I took off, but you will see shortly that I do come in and add that little word "and" up the top there. And I love distressing transfers back because it would look a little bit odd to have a chippy, worn box with a perfect transfer on the top, whereas now it really looks more cohesive. It looks like a vintage piece. So you can see I'm just going to add that word "in" onto my box as well, and also the little word "of" down the bottom. I'm also going to be adding that back in, and I will distress both of those so that they fit in. Next, I'm going to be using some more of that vintage laurel milk paint, and I'm going to paint the inside of my box. I just feel like this will make it a more finished project. I'm only going to do one coat, and you can see I'm not being super careful to get full coverage here. I don't need that. It would look a bit odd to have a perfectly painted piece on the inside with a chippy outside. I'm then going to grab the ephemeral melange transfer, and in this transfer it has little seed packets. I'm going to cut out 3 of those, and I'm going to be adding them to the lid inside. This was something else that I noticed on the seed boxes on Pinterest, that they had little seed labels on the inside, like somebody had used the seeds and then just glued them on the inside. And I think this looks really sweet. So I'm going to just repeat the same process, laying down that transfer and then lifting the plastic as I rub to release. So this was straight onto milk paint, and all I did was just make sure that there was no dust or debris, and it stuck perfectly to that milk paint. So don't be stressed when you are wanting to add transfers to milk paint, because you can. Once I have all my transfers down, I'm coming in with Dixie Belle's Best Dang Wax, and I'm going to seal the entire piece, and I'm using a microfiber cloth to buff off the excess. Once I'd finished waxing my project, I decided to add some of Dixie Belle's Dixie Dirt to the piece. I felt like this really fit in perfectly with the look I was trying to achieve, which is that perhaps a gardener had soil on their hands when they were handling the box and going through their seeds. I really like to think of the stories behind pieces when I'm creating them. It really helps guide my vision while I am creating these looks. And here's our finished seed box. I am really happy with this project. That new seed catalogue transfer is absolutely gorgeous. It pairs beautifully with the milk paint, and I definitely learnt some lessons here, guys, that I hope that you will learn from as well. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. For our next project, I'm going to be using some drop cloth and some more of those little seed designs from the ephemeral melange transfer. I'm trimming off the ones that I don't need, and then I'm going to separate the seed designs apart, and then I'm going to be measuring out how much drop cloth I need for each. We are going to be creating some lavender sachets that you can put in drawers or that you can use on coffee tables in a bowl. I thought that these would go beautifully. So I'm going to trim out however much I need for each one. Each one is a little bit subtly different, so I'm going to have to customize them. To get the size that I need, I've folded over the fabric, and then I'm going to position the transfer over the top and trim off any excess. Originally, I thought that I was going to glue them together and turn them inside out, but then I decided that I liked the rough edges. So you can see I've cut them and split them apart, and I'm just going to work my way through and measure off some of the fabric for each of my seed packets. Now I need to attach my transfer, so I'm going to peel the backing off and position it in the center of my drop cloth fabric, and then I'm going to use the transfer tool that comes with your transfer to rub my design down. You can see I'm holding the fabric as well as the transfer, rubbing over the entire thing, and then I've picked a corner and I'm slowly lifting the backing sheet off. So transfers actually go beautifully on drop cloth. They work really well, so I have never had issues with them adhering. To attach the pieces together, I'm going to put some hot glue on 3 of the sides, leaving an opening up the top, and then I'm going to press the 3 sides together. I'm going to repeat the same process for each of my sachets. So these are going to be decor pieces, so I'm not worried about my transfer at this point. It's not going to be bent, or I don't imagine handled an awful lot. So the transfers are going to be fine on this. If you were worried and you thought it was going to get a lot of wear, you could come in and use stamps instead. I could definitely see these with stamps on them, and I think that these would make great gifts or little decor pieces to put on your coffee table in a bowl. And not only are they cute, they will bring a lovely scent to your room. To fill our little scent sachets, I'm actually going to be using some lavender from our very own garden. My mum actually cut these up for me, and they've been drying for several months now, so it's really easy for me to grab them and just gently break off the little bits and pieces. I'm not sure exactly what they're called, sorry, but just break it apart so that I can actually put them into my little sachet. So you can see I'm breaking them up, and I'm not including the little stems in them. I'm opening up my little sachet that we created, and I'm emptying out the lavender, and this smelled so beautiful. I just think that this is just going to be a lovely addition to someone's drawers or anywhere in your home, really. And once I've got all of the lavender in there that I want, I'm going to use my hot glue gun to seal the bag up. I'm going to be repeating the same process for each of our little scent sachets, and then once I have sealed that all up, I'm going to take some sandpaper and just lightly scuff up the edges to get more of that frayed look. I did decide to add just a light coat of Dixie Belle's flat clear coat over the top of the transfers just to give them a tiny bit more protection to stop them from cracking. And here are our finished lavender sachets. I love how these turned out. I think they are so sweet, but they are also practical. They'll smell lovely in somebody's drawers, or they could look cute even in this seed box. You could pretend that they are seed packets. You could use them on a tiered stand. I think there are a lot of possibilities with these. Let me know what you think of these in the comments. For our next project, we're going to be using this simple wooden frame. To begin, I'm going to very carefully remove the backing and the glass, and then I'm going to grab that vintage Laurel Fusion Milk Paint again. I've still got some of that left, and I am going to give this frame one thick coat. I'm going to make sure that I've got the best coverage possible, that I've laid it on pretty thick, and then I'm going to grab out that heat gun and speed up that drying process. This is a really easy way to update frames, and it's a great beginner project if you've never used milk paint before. If I didn't want a chippy rustic look, I would have given this a light scuff sand, and I certainly wouldn't be coming in now with the heat gun to speed up the drying process. Next, I'm going to be cutting out some art paper to use with our transfers. So I'm grabbing the backing from the frame and I'm going to very carefully trace around it so that I have the right size paper for my insert. I'm then going to be using the seed catalogue design again, and I'm going to select one of the smaller designs to work with. There's so many beautiful colours in this transfer. I've selected this one because I feel like those lovely purple tones go beautifully with the vintage Laurel, but you can see here that the transfer is bigger than the paper that we have for our insert, so I'm going to trim off that bottom text. I'm also going to trim this text off here, but I'm going to save that and we will reapply that in a slightly different spot. I'm also going to take off the word Minnesota down the bottom as well. So this isn't going to fit perfectly. There is going to be elements that you can't see perfectly when it's in the frame, but that's okay. Our main focus really is those beautiful florals. So once I have my design basically how I want, I'm going to peel the backing off and we're going to start to transfer this image. I'm going to very carefully position it over my paper and then rub and burnish the design down, lifting the plastic as I go. Once I have my main design down, I can grab those elements that we removed and I can layer them over the top. So don't feel like you have to keep your transfers in the exact same way they come. I'm now grabbing some 220 grit sandpaper and I'm going to come in and sand off all of that chippy goodness that we created by speeding up the drying process. And then I'm going to seal the entire frame with Dixie Belle's Best Dang Wax in Clear. Once I've applied my wax and I have buffed it with a microfiber cloth, it's time to put our glass back in. I'm going to give it a light clean and then carefully position it back in. Then we can grab our lovely artwork that we created with the seed catalogue. I'm going to sit it inside, making sure I've got it the way that I want, and then put the backing on carefully. And here's our finished artwork. I love how this turned out. It was a super easy project, a great way to create some home decor for your home. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. Our final project is this little wooden box that I picked up for $1 at the thrift store. I try and grab any little wooden boxes that I find. I still got some of that vintage Laurel paint left over, so we're going to use it. I'm going to apply one thick coat over the entire box and then I'm going to let it dry. I'm not going to speed up the drying process too much. I don't really want to create any cracking here because we're going to be doing some layering. This vintage Laurel is our base coat. Once my paint is dry, I'm going to use a small candle to add some wax on the edges of the box and anywhere that I want our next layer of milk paint to have some resist. I'm then going to be using Fusion's Toasted Coconut Milk Paint, and I'm applying one thick coat to the entire box. Once I have good coverage over the entire box, I'm going to get my heat gun and we're going to start to speed up that drying process. You can see here I've created some really fun chippy cracking on the top. I'm then going to get some 220 grit sandpaper and sand off that chippiness that we created, and also I'm going to hit those edges to get a distressed finish. Once I've removed the sanding dust, I'm going to be using an element from the Ephemeral Melange Transfer. This is one of those really fun vintage labels. I'm going to rub and burnish that down, and this is going to be a fun little pop of color on the top, and I love adding typography to anything. It takes something that's plain and it gives it a whole new look. To stay with the vintage feel, I'm going to use some 220 grit sandpaper to lightly distress the design. I'll then seal the entire box in Best Dang wax. And here's our finished keepsake box. I'm really happy with how this turned out. I think it's really cute, and it's amazing what milk paint and a transfer can do on something plain. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. I really hope that you enjoyed today's video and the projects that I created using the new IOD seed catalogue transfer and the always beautiful ephemeral melange transfer. I think they work beautifully together. Let me know if you have a favourite from today's video. If you liked today's video, I would really appreciate it if you could give it a thumbs up, comment, and share it out to a friend that you think might enjoy it. If you haven't already, I would also really appreciate it if you would hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of our videos. You can find the products used today on our website, theprovincialfarmhouse.com.au. Thanks for watching.